All right, we are recording. Welcome everyone. It is September 19th. Yes. And this is our Perfect Connections Friday meeting at noon. And we are coming from our um, places of work and places of rest. In my case, my bedroom. And we welcome everybody from our viewing audience. I'm Susan Walker. I'm formerly from with the University of Minnesota, and I don't have anything other than we somebody had reached out with a question, and we'll talk about that. So, but I will turn it over to Greta.
Hi, I'm Greta Nelson, and I work in the Cambridge ICNA School District as a parent educator and a variety of other hats. And we just finished our first week, so that's a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, excitement. I don't have anything specifically to bring today, so or ask. So yeah, how about Sarah?
I'm Sarah Alcock. I'm with the Burnsville Egan Savage District. We also just finished our first week of classes. And even though this is my fourth year with this district, I'd still somewhat I'm still somewhat brain dead after that week. But I'm excited about the five classes that I have going. And the one question I've got for the group, and I'm sure it's been covered before, but is how to deal um, with a big talker. Um, I've got a grandma in the grandparents class that I've got, and I can tell that I'm gonna have to work on reining her in a little bit without cutting her enthusiasm.
That is a fabulous question, Sarah.
It keeps coming around and
I know
around
it
and
is.
around. It does. It does. It's a really
Yes. I will say that's one of those things that is makes it a bit easier with online teaching and like with discussion forums because people post and then sometimes they'll post a lot, but I think people can sort of summarize. But when it's in the moment, and you're trying to facilitate the entire group, yep. Um,
Big group too.
and it's a big group.
it's a
It's a
big group,
big
Sarah.
group.
How many, Sarah, would you say?
Um, if everyone, let's see, there's 13 children. Um, couple of those kids are siblings, but also a couple of the kids are brought by both grandparents.
Okay.
So if everyone comes, I think there's 12 or 13 adults
Okay.
in the group.
Okay. Yep. Good size. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that. Nancy?
I am Nancy Trahey, um, newly fully retired. We used to teach with Albany School District, and I know they had their first week of ECFE this week. Very exciting for them. And my primary reason for being here is to help. We're trying to create a resource connection for people who are not able to attend these meetings and who are watching it on YouTube. And so I'm trying to help with that. And if we have time, it can wait till another week. I'm curious about what folks consider their trusted online resources for parents who are new parents and dealing with um, newborn
Yeah.
things and breastfeeding things. Thanks.
Oh, just noting that. So, new parents. Okay. And great, thank you. And then Greta, can you remind us of, so one of our longstanding members who comes to our Friday meetings is Katie Anderson. And Katie can't be here today, and she did send an email requesting that we talk about parent notebooks, right?
Yeah, she said, I know some of you have folders that you keep in the parent room. Do you mainly use them for parents to keep handouts in? I'm thinking of using them this year and would love to hear what else you use them for. That's what
Great.
she.
Okay. So we have three great topics. Helping to manage a large group when you have especially one person who monopolizes the conversation, and also what are our trusted online resources for new parents, and then parent folders. We use them do you use them, period? And if so, do you use them just so parents can hold on to handouts, or what else do you use them for? So which of those topics would you like to discuss first? What I'm thinking, I'll just throw it out. As I look at this list, I'm thinking that the first two are going to be fairly quick. Um, and then the meteor question is Sarah's, and then we can get to that one. How does that sound?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about parent folders? Do you all use them, and what do you use them for?
I don't use folders, but I have used small notebooks before, and I found some parents tuck handouts in them and then use them for reference, or take home the ones they want, and then at the end of the year take them all home or not. But I've never used folders, so I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, I haven't used folders. Maybe I did at some season, but it's been a long time since I've used folders for collecting items for parents. I think it's kind of what Sarah was saying. There are some adults, some parents that really do like to collect and really create. This is something that's really important for them to watch and see how it grows and changes, and see, how all the things that they're learning and stuff. And then other people, not necessarily so much. So there's always kind of that for the budget piece of it, having it for all my families, everybody. That's a consideration. Sometimes it's just they get lost. I find a lot of the moms now in my classes, like, I don't want any paper. Don't give me any paper. I just don't want any paper, and so I think that's kind of where I've leaned into putting things out there on Seesaw. We use Seesaw. So I just
Oh,
really use a lot and put my slide decks out there sometimes, if they're really interested. Can we see this again? Yep, I'll put it on in Seesaw. Things like that. That's kind of where I've gone. So Katie, if you're watching, I'm sorry I'm not very much help regarding the folders. Sorry.
I used folders the last 2 or 3 years, um, and in part because um, I had parents who wanted a place to write notes, and keep their papers. And in part to help me, I tried the idea of journaling, which was for most of my parents, um, they, try as I might, they just weren't interested. I know some of our group members have lots of success with that. So there was an opportunity. I would give them something that they could, we use those questions in the observation questions in the children's room. And I usually started with those things, or at some point, use them in our lesson as we were separated. So they could write notes there if they wanted to about their observations. But the last 2 years, one of the things that was really helpful to me was to have a spot for them to write what their goal was for themselves and for their children for the term of the class. And so, because at the end of the class, then I'm asking them to tell me about, how they feel about those initial goals. And many of them are like, goal, what did I have in mind at the beginning? So I asked them to write it in there. And some of the classes, the parents pretty much stayed the same for all three 10-week sessions. So I had them do it each 10-week session, but it gave me a place to start when people were asking me, our administrators, um, our parents meeting their goals, or our parents seeing progress, that kind of thing. They wanted to have feedback from me, and outside of asking them, and having them have a place to have that reminder for themselves about what their initial goals were. Um, it kind of was difficult to manage otherwise for me. So that helped me to have a place for them to write those things.
Hmm.
And I think those were the primary ways. Sometimes I had a journal type question that I asked them at the end of class. You could call it a ticket out or whatever, or what in the next week will you do as a result of this conversation and discussion we've had, that kind of thing. So I did sometimes use it for that too. Not every week though.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's helpful to Katie. I would encourage her to also put that on Facebook, on the Facebook group, because I think there'll be people with ideas. And yeah, well, thanks. I honestly never used them in my own teaching, whether it's with parents and families or with college students. I think especially in the uh, technology age, everybody archives everything. And the challenge, though, with that, I will say, is then people also forget where they've archived something. And so if you set them up with like a place for them to archive things, if they will. Um, but Nancy, I really like also what you said about the goal thing, because one of my doctoral students actually did her research on parental goals. And there is like cognitive psychology about that if people state a goal, right, and then they're working toward a goal, that they're more likely to do it, right? And then other times, even reflecting on the goal, that they can, like if you ask people to write something at the beginning of the year, and then deeper into the year as they become more knowledgeable, right, then their own goal will change, or they'll go, wow, I was so naive, or, they'll want to refine it to be more specific,
Right.
because, they may say, I want to feel more confident as a parent, right?
Mhm,
Then they realize they are confident in some ways, but they're not confident in other ways or whatever, right?
mhm, mhm,
And so even just bringing it back to them, you know,
mhm,
and then there's also kind of the learning theory of people that are more visual learners, and like actually, and they are saying now too, and this is the challenge with AI, is that if you write something out, like it uses different parts of your brain than
mhm,
it is to just ask AI a question, right?
mhm, mhm,
And so that physical act of writing,
mhm,
can be really also helpful. So I think there are like pros and cons to having kind of the physical thing. I am curious though, just about the use of handouts. Do you find yourself using like a lot of paper handouts anymore, you guys?
I'm sorry, Greta, you're about to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah. Nope, nope.
I will admit that I am kind of attached to handouts. I know that one of my coworkers from the past few years, Danny O'Brien, does not like them because they get thrown away anyways. Um, I'm very clear that parents don't have to take them, but some people like to have something to look back on. Wait, what did she say about that?
Mhm.
Or what do it, or honey, look what I learned. We could try this.
Yeah.
And so I'm very, very clear that parents don't have to take them. And during the course of the year, I get an idea of, oh, only about half of these parents are gonna take something, so I don't need to print one for every person.
Mhm.
But I will admit that over the course of my parent ed career, I probably killed a tree or two. So,
I would say I've done this same thing, Sarah. I have handouts for many of the lessons that we do, but I often just have a stack at the table instead of having them be passed around. And just for those who want one, can take one, because you can reduce the number of handouts that are taken that way, and then it's the people who will utilize them, and whether it's a learning style that they prefer, or if they want to be communicating to somebody else at home. I'm with you there, Sarah.
I know I'm retired, but I'm just going to add, for me, unlike the beginning of my career where the handouts were here's an outline of suggestions or whatever, toward my last 5 or so years, it was more I would have something for them to write notes on, or here are the discussion questions, and you can, so that you can talk with the person next to you. You don't have to remember what they are. Um, and so it was more like again, a note-taking kind of a place.
Mhm.
Not everybody wants to do that. Not
Mhm.
everybody wants to write out to help them remember. But so it was more like not worksheets. I don't want to call them that, but you understand what I'm saying.
Sure.
And sometimes it had the questions on it for them to discuss, and sometimes it had places for them to write a note or two to themselves.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and there are people who like the physical handout for sharing with other people,
Mm-hmm.
or it saves them especially if it's like putting stuff on the fridge, like maybe it's like, what do you do if your baby is choking, or, something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it saves them from printing it out. Or I've even heard of some parents who like to share it with mothers-in-law. They'll be like, look, there's an authoritative voice, like, saying this stuff. It isn't just me. Uh,
I didn't get it done, but one of the things I wanted to do the last couple of years, I had on my goals things to accomplish, and I had a thing to keep it in. Even like so many of you have mentioned that you have a resource, like a place where they could go. Somebody has a question about, I don't know, something basic, and they would like to have more information about that topic, and maybe the whole group isn't interested in again talking about potty training or whatever. And so to have a place where they could go to pull out a sheet if they wanted it. Um,
I really like the backpack. It's pyramid model, and national pyramid model. They have some. I have them out for screening right now. Otherwise, I'd go get them. But they just have really nice, like, oh, darn it, I'm gonna get it. Oh, okay. Hold on, I'm coming. Okay. So like these ones are nice for that. There's,
oh yeah.
so like how to help your child stop hitting and pushing, how to understand the meaning of your child's challenging behavior, how to help your child have a successful bedtime, how to teach your child how to appropriately get your attention. So there's like lots and lots and lots of these. And so I have like, I don't know, I have like 10 of them out for screening, just in case there's something that a parent wants, but something like this. And they're
Tell
really
me,
handy.
I'm going to try to put a link for that. So what is who generates those?
Challengingbehavior.org.
Challengingbehavior.org. Okay.
Yep. And it's the University of Florida, but it's pyramid model. We call them the backpack handouts, or there's a variety of things that they're called. But yeah, they're great.
Okay. I'm going to put this in the notes, but I'm going to, oops. Yeah. Okay. Try to look it up and put a link in.
I just added the link, at least what Nancy or what Greta had shared. So
You
and
did put a link in already? Thank you.
yeah, well, it's if it yeah. Thanks, Greta.
Yeah.
Um, well, actually, I was thinking that was a really good segue to the second topic, which is trusted online resources for new.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think before we get into that, let's really break that up. This is just me being me. First of all, what do we mean by online resources? So are we talking websites alone? Are we also talking platforms like apps? Are we talking podcasts and videos? Are we talking YouTube channels? Um,
Wow.
are we so, I mean, there's a lot of different types of online resources. Um,
Mhm.
so first of all, is that all of the above, or is it something more specific?
Well, as I'm here with family who has recently has a newborn, and it's a new stage, I'm realizing what a challenge it is to access things. I mean, I love um, face-to-face kinds of things. Those were what, as a parent of a newborn, I sought out. But it's hard to get out. It's hard to want to go out now. Um, it's a stew pot of germs out there right now. So I started thinking about, well, and I know people who do the baby classes. I haven't done those for a long time. Another staff person has done those the last couple of years. Um, what are those quick and easy, like for a parent, it's 2 in the morning and they've got some uh, topic or question, and they would just as soon have a trusted resource to lean on rather than call the nurse line
Mhm.
or try to get out of the house to go to something that maybe is a sound resource, whether it's a baby cafe meeting or an ECFE class just for parents of newborns. When they're brand new and this is a totally new thing to you, what's something that you can lean on as a parent?
Okay. So something more immediate versus
Yeah, yeah,
good.
quick and easy kind of thing. Does it, so I mean, maybe it's an app. Um, I don't know about podcasts. I don't know. I mean, I think those can be useful, don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but I don't know if that's really would be quick.
Our I too haven't done the baby classes for a while. Our other parent educator does it. But what I remember using, what's the one where it sends you the texts every week? That one's a nice
Oh,
one. What is that,
oh,
Sarah?
shoot.
Wait, the like
Got it.
Vroom?
No.
No,
No.
Give
Okay.
a campaign about 5 or 7 years ago from,
the Wonder Weeks.
oh,
Is
was
it
that
Wonder Weeks? Wonder
The
Weeks
Wonder
has
Week.
one too. And I think
Yeah.
there's another one. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Oh, I don't remember. I'm not remembering. Shoot, I wish I could remember. It was it was one that you would just get a text every once in a while. I promoted it all the time. Maybe it'll come to me.
Yeah.
Milestones Matter, CDC, free booklets that they give. It's not online, but I think you can access it. I mean, I bet you can see this online, is what I was trying to say. But
Mhm.
that's one. CDC for developmental stuff. It's not necessarily specifically for what you're talking about, though.
Didn't
Yeah.
hospitals used to have like parent worm lines?
I
Um,
thought so.
Who did? I'm sorry, Susan.
Pardon, what?
Who had the parent warm lines?
Well, maybe hospitals. I mean, it seemed like Marty,
Okay.
at the U years ago, she, even after she retired, she worked for a long time with one of the local hospitals with their parent warm lines. And is that kind of what you're talking about, Nancy? Almost like like for instance, the other day, my dog it seemed like she was trying to clear something from her throat, right? It ended up being kennel cough. But when you're wondering, there's a chat, there's an live online chat that I have through my pet insurance that I can just describe the symptoms and they can tell me, yes, that's worth going into an emergency room for, or, sort of troubleshoot. So is it that?
I think you're onto something there, Susan, because it's not like you're just entering that into Google and getting some kind of, you know, AI answer,
Right.
you know, it's something that you trust then to,
Yeah.
Think Small is the one that does the text that I was thinking of. Think
okay.
Small.
Yeah.
Parent
Yeah.
powered text. Um, the other one that I think of is we hand out this online resources from Help Me Grow. And in this,
Oh,
it says, and this hasn't been updated for a little while, but Help Me Grow, babycenter.com, Parent Aware, Minnesota Learn the Signs Act Early, Mom Enough. That's a while ago now. That's Marty and Aaron Erickson. Wow. Okay. Parenting Counts, Text for Baby. It's got a bunch of lists on here,
okay. Okay. I'll see if I can't find that online resources from Help Me Grow.
but it's not exactly what you guys are talking about still. It's
Yeah, I think back when I worked in Wisconsin for a Children's Trust Fund, parent family resource center, we had a daytime warm line.
okay.
And something like that, only that, because now you wouldn't, there's lots of resources like calling the nurse line from the doctor's office, or there's those kinds of things. But if you're hesitant to make a phone call, you know that parents are doing that. Um, they're just going to go to Google and put in their question. Is it normal for whatever? I don't know. The
Do
baby's
birth,
poops to be black the first
yeah.
couple days.
Do birthing centers, now that they're a little bit more focused, do they have like a nurse line at a baby center that's a little bit more geared toward those kinds of questions, Nancy?
That's a good question.
Comparatively to going to, labor and delivery at a hospital, which they're so busy. I just feel like
Hmm.
with midwives and stuff like that now and doulas that they would have more relational
Hmm.
experiences for young mamas, but I don't know that for sure.
It's okay. We can move on from this. I think these are some good ideas, and I'll take a look at some of these things.
This one's Text for Baby, text for the number 4 and then baby. Free messages each week on your cell phone to help you through pregnancy and your baby's first year. Anyway, that's another one that's on here.
Thanks, everybody.
Hopefully.
I think parents, I saw on one of the news channels this morning, they were asking, a parent was on screen explaining how confused she is now about the vaccination
Oh,
stuff, for example.
that was so sad.
So, I mean, yes, they can call their pediatrician, but like she said, her first inclination was to Google it. So she says, I'm seeing all different kinds of opinions online, and that just adds to the confusion. So that's just one example. Now, that's a little bit older, a parent of a little bit older child than what I was talking about, but that kind of thing, I think, whew, I worry for parents. How are they going to know what they can trust
Right.
for
I guess
reliable information?
I hear that all the time. It's like,
Mm,
okay, so and so said this and so and
Mhm.
so said that. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna work on finding ones that are reliable, trustworthy, but um it's really hard. I mean, things change so fast. Um and there's so much information out there.
mhm. Yeah, I think we should move on to the last question here.
No, it's a great question though, Nancy, because it does, immediately, I think that there are some state-supported places and through hospitals, cooperative extension, things like that, as I look around the country that sort of provide that. And even if it's leave a question and somebody will call you back or, whatever. Um, and what I'm finding for Minnesota is mostly mental health related for parents.
Mm.
Which may, or, I mean, if you're uh, postpartum or, like you're just really stressed, that's one resource. But if it's a question about immunizations, right, and I'm confused and things like that, yeah. And Sarah or Nancy too, your thing about, parents just ending up Googling it. To me, that also says that a topic to share with parents is just Googling for information, your best way to go, right?
Right, right.
As or just using ChatGPT, is that your way to go? Because it's understandable, it's quick, it's efficient, it's right there. And that's what the majority of us will do when we have a question, right? Which also speaks tremendously to the idea of trusted resources and the lack of
Mhm.
trusted resources. But what happens when you do Google it and and you see the top three resources, and yeah, so it is a really good question. And I almost think I'm at almost at better advantage with my dog and having a question about her, her care. um you know which then does make, since I could find it through my pet insurance, which then, and I don't know this, is like through various health insurance providers, would they have almost like a parent warm line for questions about your child's health, which could also relate to children's behavior and things like that. So
Um, Something paralleled that quickly is just recently going to an OBGYN and having a lot of questions myself because I am on social media and I feel like I listen to a lot of different things and I have a lot of different questions. And she said, NAMS, she goes, the North American Menopause Association, she said. And I said, okay, I will make sure to include that in my research and my thoughts and my questions. And so similarly, I think we can parallel that, right? We can say there's the national associations that we trust and we believe in that we can, and just like the OBGYN, she was lovely. And she encouraged me in my research and my online presence, right, to do something like that. So I think we can do that too, right?
yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
even have a fun experiment in one class. Just say, hey, let's let's just Google it right now, right? And see what
Oh,
comes up.
right.
Let's do that and see what comes up. What do we trust? What do we don't trust? What is just fun information or fun way to look at something, and what is you know
Yep.
more trusted. Yeah.
I cannot tell you how great of an idea that is. And I know I sound really judgy even by labeling it that way. The reason that I do is because I am all about critical thinking and I am all about, especially with technology, it's exactly the kind of thing I would do in an undergraduate class related to technology and use of social media, use of dating apps and things like that, where jointly we would go into it together because people learn so much better from their peers than they do from some sort of a standard lecture because they hear, and this is what we've seen with parents too, you go through an exercise like that, parents who they've learned to trust are going to be questioning certain things, or they're going to go, well, I would never use that resource. And somebody inside might be thinking, well, I would, but she doesn't. So that's really interesting, right? So I just, it's just such a fabulous exercise. It's neutral. It doesn't put anybody on the spot. And you can ask them for what kind of a question would they Google, right? And let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And
Well, and it might lean into Sarah's thing is I might even just say break up into groups of 2 or 3 and have them on their devices do something, right? Come up with one question and then write down the responses, and then report back to the group. What did you find? What comes to the top of the list when we Google like that, right?
right.
And I say that it returns to Sarah's because Sarah's challenging conversation.
And look,
Conversationalist.
yeah,
It's all group work.
SEO, right? So you have all these paid groups, or the more hits that they get, they rise to the top, right? And so people have a tendency of like, oh, well, these 3 sources, they all say the same thing, so that must be it. When really, right? Anyway, well, great discussion, everybody, about that. Thanks so much for bringing that up, Nance. And Sarah, let's close it out. We've got about
Okay.
15 minutes left to really dive into this always
Right.
topic. Would you mind rephrasing it again, just because we started at the top of the hour? So,
No problem. Um, I have a grandparents group that is quite large. There, if all of the members show, it's 12 to 13 adults. And it's only week 1, and I've already identified one of the grandparents is quite talkative, quite willing to share her opinion. I don't want to rein in her enthusiasm, but I want to make sure that she does not um, monopolize conversation slash um, insert her opinion as being more important than others.
Did you set up a what is it? That thing like here's an old one that I had. Group norms. Have you set
Group
up group
norms.
norms?
I have done group norms with this
Okay.
group.
Okay. Okay.
I will continue to do that. How do I put my take is that this particular person may not see that her interjections kind of go against the norms.
Mm-hmm.
That, for example, one of the norms is you are the expert on your family, your community, your culture, but not necessarily on other people's. And I'm going to have to make sure that she's understanding that applies to you just like it applies to everybody else.
So is it the content of what she's saying, or is it the domination of time, the amount of time she's using?
I think it's the domination of time.
Okay.
Now, like I said, I've had 1 week with this group, so it will be I'll have to explore that a little bit more. But from what I could tell, she just interjected herself a lot.
Mhm.
so Sarah, so you've been with this group 1 week, and
Mhm.
you identify that this grandmother interjects herself a lot, and when she does, she talks for a long time and monopolizes the time in conversation.
No, doesn't necessarily talk for a long time. Just
Often?
just often.
Okay.
And not necessarily waiting for her turn.
Okay. Okay. And so by doing that, she speaks frequently,
Mhm.
and over time, you might perceive that others will will back off and not say anything because they sort of figure, well, she's going to talk, so why should I even bother?
That's one of my fears. Yes.
Okay. Well, one thing that you can do, and this is the scary thing, is to talk to her privately,
Mhm.
pull her aside before the meeting, something like that. That said, and like I said, I know it's not easy. I've done it. You know, you have to be careful, gentle, do a lot of positive stuff about how really, as the facilitator, you appreciate that she is contributing because it makes your job that much easier. And this is all about community and people learning from each other, and that kind of thing. That said, when she's the first one to jump in, you've also seen that other people then can back off and not contribute their opinion, and their offering is very helpful to their own learning, yada yada. So, but what I would say is if this is the first week, I would not suggest doing that now because it could be nerves. It could be a whole host of reasons why she's jumping in quickly or often. And I would honestly, what I would do is to wait to see if a pattern develops. Is this her every time she comes to the meeting? And then as a result of that too, you'll also have more time to observe how other people respond, right?
Mhm.
You
Right.
may even, and you won't need to share this with her, but over time, if she keeps doing it, you may somebody may come to you and say it's really frustrating for me, right? And that will just kind of bolster your own courage a little bit to speak with her.
Mhm.
But so I'd give it time and
Mhm.
just see if it continues. Um, and then meanwhile, deploy whatever tactics you can in the moment to facilitate other people. I mean, group norms is great. Some people in the past have talked about having like the talking stick kind of thing, where, and it's not like that physical, but I think people have used physical objects to sort of, especially if it is a, let's all weigh in on this topic and you really want to hear from everybody. I know very often it's more of throwing out a question, has anybody experienced this before or, whatever. And then the most chatty people are the ones who are going to pipe up. So, but anyway, pull her aside if necessary, in a gentle, supportive way, to wait, give it some time to see if this continues. And then three, in the meanwhile, continue to deploy, your group stuff to really try to hear from everybody. And I in the undergraduate classroom too, I will have those people who talk quite frequently. And with my own, and this is the other thing that time will do is you gain comfort with people, where I can kid with people, and I can say, Greta, boy, do I appreciate hearing from you, but we're gonna talk to somebody else today, or I would say it kinder than that,
Right.
but
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
but where you can, it almost is like identifying the elephant in the room, but in a very, jokey, positive community way.
Mhm.
All right,
Mhm.
I'll shut up. What else do you guys have for Sarah?
I thought that was great. I want to create a PowerPoint slide on that so I can recall it in the future. That was good. I agree. I last year had a gal, a mama actually, who said, I have ADHD and I will just run. I am what does she say? What are those vacuums that just bounce off things and go back and forth? She goes,
Oh,
Roomba.
yeah, I'm a Roomba. She goes, I get into Roomba mode and I just go bump, 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 and I just bump it. And so then we just used that group think, that little group story. So we would just use Roombaing as our term to, just to say, okay, we're doing a lot of Roombaing here. So let's just bring it on back and whatever, trying to find a social situation that, yeah, getting to know her, get that next story, the deeper story of who she is, then you have access to conversation that might lend itself towards direction that you don't necessarily have to give everybody, right? Is essentially, I think, what Susan was saying too. Yeah.
And there is a part of that too that is, you know, and you don't want to overanalyze situations, but I hear about stuff like that, and sometimes it also speaks to an insecurity, where so why is it that people talk more frequently in groups, right? And in my own stuff in doing professional development on managing groups or working with groups, I mean, there are like four different types of people in groups, right? The person who's really silent and the person who overshares and stuff like that. And there is a psychology, I mean, behind that. And so there could be that lack of confidence. There could be people in her own life that if she's feeling a little bit displaced by an older or younger generation or whatever, that when she's in this forum, she may also find it, somewhat like if she's the grandmother and there's younger people in the room, she may also see this as kind of like a place to teach, that by sharing her opinion all the time, it's just like she loved being a parent, she loved being a grandparent, like this is her element, and she wants everybody else to be happy just like her, right? Or to share her frustrations and learn how she's gone through things or whatever, and so that also fits into some of like our internal messaging when we have conversations with people, that we look at them in a very gentle, positive way of what is their motivation for speaking so frequently. And and I know you, Sarah, and you will absolutely not be anything but warm and generous and kind and considerate should you have that one-on-one conversation with her. But I always find it somewhat fascinating to think about why it is that in these social settings, there are some people who are a little bit more frequent to give their opinion. Yeah.
And I really appreciate I appreciate all of the suggestions, but the to give thought to try and identify why might she be talking more
Yeah.
than some others. What is the motivation behind that? Because that could answer um a lot of questions on how do I approach that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something, Sarah, that in the grandparent classes that I've done, I think something that works pretty well is to create an ethos of we are the grandparents. What does that mean? And what is our role and what is their role? What are the parents' role? And some of them were really heavy into childcare. They did all of it. Some of them, the children lived with them. So it was a variety. But I think one of the things that can help going forward in grandparent classes is for that to be really well understood, right, by the group. Like, yep, and we're the grandparents, that kind of a little phrase that gets said each week, yep, and we're the grandparents. Like, yes, there's these things that are so true to us and they're so deep in us. And we want that for our grandchildren as much as we wanted it for our own children. And they are not us, right? And just kind of that. I don't know. I love that opportunity with grandparents to talk about that thing, whatever that is, right? For each one is so different, but it's grandparenting and it's different than parenting. And right here, right now, let's talk about all the things we would love. That's great, right? At the same time, we're
That's
here
out of
to
our control.
support and encourage. Yeah.
Sarah, is this grandparent in a grandparent class?
Yes, it is in a grandparent class.
Ah, okay, got
Although
it.
there are a few non-grandparents in that.
Mhm.
I was upfront, like you guys are welcome to stay. Maybe you'll have some perspectives that the grandparents need. And it's like but we do have two non-grandparents.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How beautiful. Yeah, for the groups to have an opportunity to learn from each other. Bye,
Right.
Greta.
Greta.
Yeah. Sometimes, I haven't taught a grandparent class, so um, I haven't experienced that, what you're talking about, that, the grandparent. I have experienced, similar situations in general ECFE classes. And I think sometimes some personalities, um, early on, especially in the development of a group, they feel like they need to fill the space. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? You
mhm.
present something as a facilitator and they feel like they need to fill that space, which isn't the case, but they don't know that. And so sometimes I think, and that's a good question. Maybe that's something that's a characteristic of her.
Mhm, mhm.
She's wondering why everybody else isn't jumping in too.
And Nancy, thank you for pointing that out because I struggle with not filling up the empty silence as well.
Mhm.
So if I'm doing that, that could be what she's doing. Or I should say, if I'm feeling that, that could be what she's feeling. Um, um, and
Yeah.
there are people out there who are not comfortable with silence.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so then sometimes I think pairing people up,
Mhm. Yeah.
so then, yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah. And
whatever.
especially if you have a group that big.
Hmm.
It's another management technique. I
Mhm.
appreciate Nancy, you're saying that. It's another way of um, sort of orchestrating change without being direct. And it could be if you have a group that big, sometimes people are awkward one-on-one. Maybe you break them into two groups of six or three groups of four, or and especially if and you can decide with the two non-parents how comfortable they are. And so if you did a pairing thing, maybe you put the two parents that are non-grandparents together.
Mhm.
Did I say non-parents? You
It's
put
okay. I know what you meant.
Yeah, me too.
you put the two non-grandparent, but again, it's like it's making a structural change to achieve your goal,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
then yeah, so that's a great idea. Yeah.
Another thought I just had, kind of, by switching things up, parents are allowed to sit where they want. Maybe one week I'll try putting their name tags out or ahead of time. Okay, maybe you need to sit next to somebody who is quieter or more talkative or whatever, Um,
Yeah. And earlier, like, was it 2 weeks ago or whatever, we talked about all kinds of like connection exercises, and that we did it this week, this summer at the retreat. Um, and sometimes those, especially as you move on, and they don't have to be done first day, right? You can really do them anytime,
Mhm.
and help adults feel more comfortable in a learning setting together with strangers. But yeah, I mean, it's your class, you can facilitate it to achieve your own learning goals for the class. And in the meantime, they only benefit. The learners only benefit. And the fact that you're sensitive, because you're raising about this individual, right? You're thinking of the group, right?
Mhm.
And you're also thinking of what you're trying to achieve as an instructor, right? And so all of these things are only to your class's benefit. So I really appreciate, Sarah, you're bringing this. Um,
Mhm.
because it's something that can be positive overall, but it's something that also and I hope that there are new parenting educators who are watching the video because this is
Mhm.
something we all face all the time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Exactly. So,
So
well,
thanks.
this has been really helpful. I've got quite a few new ideas. I will be going back and reviewing this on reviewing the recording. Just it's like, okay, oh, what else did Nancy say? Oh, Greta said something, and so
Yep. All right. Well, we are a little bit after one, and I have a transcript. What I'm interested, so I'll stop the recording just as I goodbye everybody from the other world.
Mhm.
Um, um,